Okay, so now another difficult question with certificates is revocation. Okay, so revocation. Suppose that, suppose that the UC president's public key was compromised. Namely, someone found out their secret key by stealing their laptop. But there's a certificate already for the UC president from Verisign. And it has an expiry that's in the future. So the question is, how can we revoke a certificate that has not yet expired? How can we revoke a certificate that has not yet expired? Any ideas? This was, by the way, a huge problem earlier on when some CA, I forget if it was Verisign, I think it was Verisign, issued the false certificate for Microsoft, basically signed the public key as belonging to Microsoft when it didn't. And I mentioned last time that people were, those attackers who were holding the corresponding secret key were able to install arbitrary software on everybody's machines that had the Microsoft OS. So that was a very difficult situation, and the certificate wasn't expiring anytime soon. But in that case, because Microsoft is special and it's Microsoft was able to push an update to all those machines saying, if you see this particular certificate, ignore it. But, we might want to revoke certificates that don't belong to Microsoft. Any ideas what we could do? So, it's really not a lot you can do, and unfortunately, this has been a big problem. One is you just wait till expiry, right? And make expiry shorter, but then, of course, there's a lot of burden associated with that because it means people have to re-obtain certificates from the CA with some frequency, and that's a lot of overhead. But the other option is revocation lists. So you could have the CA, for example, could push. So it could be the CA could be contacted about situations when there was a fake certificate or figure out that that was the case, and could push revocation. For example, it could be a signature, from the CA saying, revoke, some cert, right? And could push this in revocation list, for example, as browser updates or, into browsers. But this is not great because it's not always possible to just, not all browsers are going to go and fetch these updates. And you can't do it all the time, so you just do it periodically. So it's not an ideal solution. Not ideal solution. Because browsers might not be downloading these lists all the time. Might not be downloading lists frequently. All right, so there isn't really a great solution for revocation. These are mitigations only. And in general, another big problem with all this certificate authority hierarchy and this approach is that, CAs can be compromised. Definitely happen that over time certain CAs were compromised, or, could be deceived to sign incorrect certificates. Okay, so this is a problem that, has been a problem for decades since we used the CA certificate authorities. And, we still kind of worked with this. They work in the common case, but there's these issues that would always show up. So this is, a long-term problem with CAs. Okay, so it's still something that people have widely used for many years because there wasn't something better, but these were things that weren't great. One is revocation, and the other, the revocation is not seamless, and the other is that CAs could be compromised or just deceived to signing correct certificates. And what's exciting is that really only in the past few years we found out a solution after decades of thinking of how we could solve this. And really the solution comes from ledgers and blockchains. Something called transparency logs. And we'll discuss about them in one of the miscellaneous topics at the end of the class. So, transparency logs promise to address this problem. So if people tell you that, all this blockchain and Bitcoin only do is consume a lot of power, well, there are some very good things coming out of it as well, such as constructions like transparency logs, which are much better mechanisms for handling certificates. And I'll talk about this later in class in the miscellaneous topics because it's a more advanced topic.